When I was a child, my family would travel down to western Kentucky, where my parents were born. And there's a backwards old town that's often remembered so many times that my memories are worn. And Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River, where paradise lay? Well, I'm sorry, my son, but you're too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train has hauled it away.
I think just about anybody in the current Americana realm, myself included, Tyler, Sturgill, I think we have all tried to rip that song. That's a song that just feels like it seeps into your bones and it stays there, you know, and it's like, it's an earworm too. It just like has that hook that is so memorable, but it's like the perfect little folk song.
He wrote that song for my father. He had played a bunch of his songs for my father, and Dad said, well, those are nice, he said, but you got to do something that's more Kentucky. My father, they grew up down there.
You're from Muhlenberg County, aren't you?
No, my mother and father come from there. And me and my brothers were all raised up near Chicago, Maywood, Illinois. But we used to return to Muhlenberg County a lot when I was a kid.
That song, I think, makes everybody think that he is from Kentucky because of Muhlenberg County. But I'm always like, no, John is from Illinois. You know, makes me really proud to be from Illinois, too, because I always just thought it was like middle of nowhere. And a lot of people used to give me shit for like not being born in the South or whatever. And I was like, hey, John Prine's from Illinois. It's good enough for me.
Yeah, I think it gave voice to an entire population of people that are often ignored or dismissed, you know, like especially in today's climate, we tend to paint the middle of the country in broad strokes, which I think is really tragic because it really erases a lot of the nuance and a lot of the diverse perspectives and lives of that region. And I think that Prine saw that. You know, I don't think that his Chicago upbringing, his suburban Chicago upbringing, totally jibed with his family members in Western Kentucky. Like, I'm sure they disagreed on some things, but really, you know, it's about a spirit of family and about that spirit of love of family that transcends these issues that we've sort of gotten away from. And I think that this song recalls a time where society wasn't that way. And I think it's really special. And I think that's why, you know, this song has become a standard, maybe more so than any other song on the album. And bluegrass combos and family pickers and, you know, folk musicians will often replace Muhlenberg County with their own county or their own town, their own region, because I think its sentiment is so universal.
It's a song about a small town in western Kentucky. Sits down Muhlenberg County on the Green River. The name of the town was Paradise. My mother and father were born and raised down there. They got married when they was about 17 and moved to Chicago so my father could get some work. They raised me and my brothers up there, but they always kept meaning to go back to Paradise. They kept calling it to be home, you know. And we ended up spending a lot of time traveling back and forth between Chicago and Paradise. It was a pretty little place. There's only about like 48, 49 people living there, you know, at one time. They were all relatives of mine. Then we got a whole lot else to do besides become relatives, you know. I had a whole lot of fun down there. Me and my cousin used to go to this place. It's about half a mile down the river from Paradise. There's this old abandoned Civil War prison. Been abandoned since Civil War, you know. And we used to just go up there and we use our imaginations and kill each other about 1,000 times a day, you know. We made the mistake of telling this one aunt of ours that we've been playing by the prison. So when she found out that we've been playing up there, she said, you boys shouldn't go up on Adrie Hill. Adrie Hill is just crawling with snakes. There's snakes all over that place. If you ever go back up there again, take a pistol with you. And if you smell anything that smells like cucumbers, start shooting. We were pretty scared. We stayed away from there for about a week. And, our curiosity got us, so we went on back up there. It's about a 20-minute ride by boat to get there, and we didn't talk to each other hardly at all going up there this time. You know? By the time we got up there, everything smelled like cucumbers. You know?
Well, sometimes we'd travel right down the Green River to the abandoned old prison down by Adrie Hill, where the air smelled like snakes and we'd shoot with our pistols. But empty pop bottles was all we would kill. And Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where paradise lay.
The recording was done in Memphis, and when they got to Paradise and they needed a fiddle player, they brought this guy in from the Memphis Symphony, who was obviously an awesome violinist. And he laid down a track, and then John came back here with the original rough cut of the recording. And he played it for my father. And my father looked at him and said, "That's got to be Dave." And so that is how it happened. So then next I had to go to a studio in Chicago and dub it. And for me, this was a totally new experience. I'm a totally self-taught old-time fiddler, and I'm used to sitting on my back porch and playing with my banjo picker. And so going into a studio is a whole different animal. And before I could do that, I had to join the musicians union. So I took my fiddle and I went downtown to the musicians union, and they kind of looked at me like I'd come from a different planet. But I guess as long as I was willing to pay the dues, I was a member. So I became a union member. And then I had to go to the studio, and that was a bit of a challenge because I'd never tried to play with a pair of headphones on. Because the fiddle goes here and the headphones are in the way, but it worked. I got in the booth and I played it 2 or 3 times, and they picked the one they wanted, and that's the one that ended up on the record. And there it is in all of its scratchy Kentucky glory. When I go back and listen to it now, I think, my God, that's really primitive, isn't it?
Then the coal company came with the world's largest shovel, and they tortured the timber and stripped all the land. Well, they dug for their coal till the land was forsaken. Then they wrote it all down as the progress of man.
My father was loved country and western music, and when I learned how to play the guitar, he would I'd sit in the kitchen and he'd ask me to play Hank Williams and Roy Acuff songs and Jimmy Rogers songs, Webb Pierce. And so when I got around to writing, when I was away in the Army, my dad sent me a letter telling me that Peabody Coal had bought up what was left of the town, moved the people out, and tore the town down because they were going to strip mine where the town was. And the joke was the people sold their houses to them, but everybody knew that there's nothing there except sulfur. And it took Peabody 20 years and millions of dollars to find out that there wasn't any coal right where the town was.
Yeah, that's great.
Some people think of Paradise as like a parable or something, but it's actually a real, true account of the events that took place in Paradise, Kentucky that sort of ruined the charm of this historic town. This energy company moved in, they began strip mining the area, which is a much more destructive form of mining than like the tunneling version of mining. They basically like strip away huge chunks of land and completely kind of render the landscape, unrecognizable. And so that's what Prine is detailing in that song, sort of the destruction of this town and this area that his family's from and that his dad loved with all of his being. Prine always talked about how his dad raised him to know that he was a pure Kentuckian, right? The last of a dying breed. They were really proud of those Southern roots.
The longing for a home that doesn't exist anymore, I don't really have that experience, but it makes me so sad to think about. When I think about what if that happened and there was no Mineral Wells, Texas anymore, or what I know of it, not just a small change, but there's not really anything anymore there. That it's just that it kind of makes me really sad. But I think that's the point of it. But then I also wonder if that was to show that we're all connected to the places that we're from.
So after he went to Memphis and recorded his album, basically he didn't have a test pressing or anything yet. So he brought the tape reel that the album was on home so he could play Paradise for his dad so his dad could hear it. And Bill Prine, he wasn't a very demonstrative man. He could keep things close to the vest, right? And so I think that he swelled up with emotion and he told John, his son, I'm going to go listen from the next room so I can pretend I'm listening to it on the jukebox. But really, he didn't want his son to see him crying.
He died in August of 71, much, much, much too young. He was about 10 days short of being 56 years old, which is awful. And it was a brutal shock to all of us. He did get to hear the final mix, I think, but the album itself had not come out. I remember that was one of the remarks I made when that awful thing happened. I said, geez, he's never going to get to hear the album, have an autographed copy of it, and so on.
When I die, let my ashes float down the Green River. Let my soul roll on up to the Rochester Dam. I'll be halfway to heaven with paradise waiting, just 5 miles away from wherever I am. And Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where paradise lays? Well, I'm sorry, my son, but you're too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train has hauled it away.